Hello and welcome. I am just your average old American, and today we're going to be analyzing the laws within California pertaining to COVID-19 vaccinations and employers and or employment. Now, this is going to be specifically taking a deeper analysis of the words being said in these documents from only the confirmed and or trusted sources that are speaking of these matters, that being members such as the DFEH and the FDA themselves. Now, the DFEH is the Department for Fair Employment and Housing. They are a government-ran organization. This specifically is that we're looking at the California government ran organization of the DFEH. This organization, generally speaking, focuses on making sure that there are fair and respected employee rights respected with regard to employment, as well as individuals' rights with regard to housing. Now, what we see here in the Department of Fair Employment and Housing employment information on COVID-19 document, including their frequently asked questions, we see the section regarding vaccination. Now, let's start off with the first section here. It asks, may an employer require its employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19? And we see here it says, short answer, under the FEHA, the Fair Employment and Housing Act, an employer may require employees to receive an FDA-approved vaccination against COVID-19 infection so long as the employer does not discriminate against or harass employees or job applicants on the basis of a protected characteristic, provides reasonable accommodations related to disability or sincerely held religious beliefs or practices, and does not retaliate against anyone for engaging in protected activity, such as requesting reasonable accommodation. Let's take a quick second to consider and analyze this statement before we move on to the expanded answer. Please note that one of the things that it does state is that under the FEHA, an employer may require employees to receive an FDA-approved vaccination against COVID-19. An FDA-approved vaccination is, regarding the FDA, they use very specific terminology to express the status of vaccines. Words matter in this context because that is how they base their operations off of. If we respect the FDA, we respect the words that they use. So we're seeing here that the short answer is that an employer may require employees to receive an FDA-approved vaccine against COVID-19. But furthermore, it also states that the employer may not discriminate against any employees who engage in what is referred to as protected activity. Again, protected activity may refer to things such as disability or sincerely held religious beliefs or practices. And again, we are guaranteed that we do not retaliate against anyone for engaging in protected activity, such as requesting a reasonable accommodation. This is included as an example, but is not the end-all be-all. Now we'll engage in a short discussion about the explanation or the expanded explanation of the above statement. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, that being the FDA, authorized and recommended 3 vaccines against COVID-19 infection, and the FDA may approve other vaccines for use in the United States. As safe and effective vaccines against COVID-19 infection become more widely available, employers may wish to encourage their employees to get vaccinated. Here, DFEH does not provide guidance on whether or to what extent an employer should mandate vaccination within its workforce. Rather, this FAQ and the following FAQs should address how an employer complies with the FEHA if it decides to require employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19 infection with an FDA-approved vaccine. The FEHA prohibits discrimination and harassment on the basis of protected characteristics. Therefore, if an employer mandates or encourages vaccination in its workforce, the employer's vaccination policy must practice, the employer's vaccination policy or practice must not discriminate against or harass employees or job applicants based on protected characteristics such as disability, perceived disability, or religion. In addition, as explained in the next FAQs, the FEHA requires employers to reasonably accommodate employees with a known disability or a sincerely held religious belief or practice that prevents them from being vaccinated against COVID-19, as well as prohibits employers from retaliating against anyone for engaging in protected activity. So, what we can understand from reading this document, or this section of this document, is a few things. One, we see the U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorized and recommended 3 vaccines against COVID-19 infection. And the FDA may approve other vaccines for use in the United States. Please note that the lack of completely similar wording here, authorized, recommended, approve, the lack of consistent wording here is not because they are trying to make their document not sound repetitive. As we all know, legal documents do not care if their document sounds repetitive. The reason why you see that we have a confirmed statement that the FDA authorized and recommended 3 vaccines against COVID infection, and that they may approve other vaccines, and that we don't see this document stating that the FDA has approved any COVID-19 vaccinations is because, in truth, they have yet to approve the COVID-19 vaccination, any of the 3 primary ones that are seen in the US. Now, just to make sure that we are being consistent with ourselves, we don't want to rely only on the DFEH. So, as well, we will look at what the FDA has to say about it. When we look on the FDA.gov website, we see a section where we're consulting COVID-19 vaccines. And what we can see if we scroll just a short way down is that we see that COVID-19 vaccines authorized for emergency use include the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, and the Janssen. Now, this list is currently the only 3 vaccines that we are seeing and or regarding inside of the US for authorized use. Please note that it is really easy to accidentally refer to these as approved vaccines, but the wording is very specific. These are authorized for emergency use. These are under an AEU. Now, what's an AEU? Well, the acronym is authorized for emergency use. Now, if we look further on the FDA.gov website, we can see what their current definition is as of a recent posting from 2020, how they currently want to define the EUA. An emergency use authorization, EUA, is a mechanism to facilitate the availability and use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during public health emergencies, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. Under an EUA, FDA may allow the use of unapproved medical products or unapproved uses of approved medical products in an emergency to diagnose, treat, or prevent serious or life-threatening diseases or conditions when certain statutory criteria have been met, including that there are no adequate approved or available alternatives. So what we see in the remainder of this document as well is simply put that the FDA is explaining what the emergency use authorization is. This is a mechanism that allows the availability and use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during pandemics. This may allow the use of unapproved medical products, and it may allow the use of approved medical products. But still, as of yet, we have not seen in any of these documents so far where it is expressed directly that the COVID-19 vaccination is an approved vaccine. Rather, we see an immensely consistent language that expresses that this is authorized for emergency use and recommended. So the FDA is making their recommendation that you would use their vaccine. But again, they have authorized it, but the vaccine has not been approved. You see that the wording is very easy to get mistaken when you're speaking about it, because these 2 words, they have a similar idea, right? It's very easy to get it mixed around, but it is not the same thing. Authorized for emergency use does not equate to approved. If it were approved, then this would say COVID-19 vaccines approved by the FDA. Now, just to make sure that we're being consistent, we're also going to look at the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials website. This is a not government-linked website, but it is used by health officials. So what we see here is a document that states, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the FDC Act, creates mechanisms to permit the use of medical products before they have been approved under the FDC Act or for unapproved uses under the Act. So this gives the background of specifically what this document is talking about. So what we see is their repeated explanation of what an emergency use authorization is. The emergency use authorization for the use of unapproved medical products, that being drugs, biologics such as vaccines, and devices such as diagnostics, or the use of approved medical products in unapproved ways to diagnose, treat, or prevent serious diseases or conditions caused by chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear agents. Okay, so what we have, again, is a very consistent delineation between emergency use authorization and approval. If one equaled the other, then we wouldn't see a line drawn between an unapproved medical product and an approved medical product being used in an unapproved way. So again, what we see, if we consider ourselves all the way back to the DFEH, is that we see that an employer is allowed to require employees to receive an FDA-approved vaccination against COVID-19. But, at least as of the documentation being published here, the FDA has still only authorized and recommended 3 vaccines against COVID-19 infection. Therefore, the vaccines available to the people inside of the United States of America are not yet vaccines that have been approved by the FDA, and as of yet are only vaccines that have been authorized for emergency use. This means that an employer may not require, under their own words here by the DFEH, an employer actually may not require employees currently to get any of the vaccines that are currently available in the U.S. because the vaccines that are currently available are authorized for emergency use and they are not expressly approved by the FDA. Therefore, this document, which is being used as a guideline for some businesses, this document is not a credible source to allow those businesses to require their employees to be vaccinated with the current list of available vaccines from the FDA for COVID-19. So thank you for listening. I know this has been long. I'm sure that there's been some moments of misspoken words, but words matter in the case of legal discussion. And whenever an employer is trying to tell you that you are required to do something, they are stating that with legal backing, or they are making a very dangerous gamble. So, stay informed, stay peaceful, stay safe.